My name is Bob Darrell, and I am alcoholic. And only through the grace of a God that I was afraid to believe in, that I have access through the 12-step process in the Big Book, good sponsorship, and a persistent and consistent commitment to our primary purpose of helping other drunks. And consequently, I haven't had a drink or any mind or emotion-altering substance since October 31st, 1978. And for that, I owe Alcoholics Anonymous, and I owe big time. And not just so much for the abstinence. What I really owe AA for is the freedom. Because abstinence without freedom drives some of us so insane we'll take our own lives, or we'll get on medication, or we'll drink again. Because we just can't take being locked up in here. And I'm a free man today for the most part. I want to thank Vicki for her share. I have to, it was good talk. I have to sort of say something positive about guitar players. They're not all bums. I'm a guitar player, and I sat there and thought I need to speak up for my people. Even though I was the bum you were talking about at one time. I'd like to welcome anybody that's new. Glad you're here. There's a lot of hope here in Alcoholics Anonymous. I am something that is almost rare in AA, sometimes in some fellowships in some parts of the country. I'm just an alcoholic. I am not an alcoholic and anything. And I, for years, was told by psychiatrists and treatment centers that I had all these additional problems. And I'm the guy that talks about in the beginning of chapter 3, it says, when most of us have been unwilling to admit we were real alcoholics. And it goes on to say, by every form of self-deception and experimentation, I'll try to prove myself exceptions to the rule. Therefore, not one of you. Because I didn't want to be one of you. I had alcoholics in my family, and I was hell-bent not to be like them. I'd rather be a mental health case. I'd rather be a drug addict. At least a drug addict. There was a little panache in that. There were rock stars that were drug addicts, for God's sakes. There was nobody to look up to that was a drunk. But I had alcoholism, and I had it. I didn't know it for many, many years. I didn't want to have it. But I had it. And I suspect that I may have had it before I ever picked up a drink. And it's hard to say until alcohol hits you if you're an alcoholic or not. But I suspect I must have been like a freeze-dried alcoholic waiting for alcohol. And the reason I suspect that is that I was self-involved obsessively even as a kid. I remember in grade school, and I didn't come from a bad family. Nobody abused me or anything. I had a great childhood. But I didn't feel like other people looked. There was an awkwardness about me. I can't connect with people the way they seem to be so connected to each other. And I don't know why. And I seem to be anxious and worried about a lot of stuff. And what other people possibly might be thinking about me was a big piece of business in my consciousness. And I did what a lot of guys like me do. I've talked to guys I sponsor that were just like this also. We become the pretend people. I become the guy who pretends he's okay. I become the guy who pretends he's not afraid. I become the guy who pretends he fits. And I walk around with a squirmy ball of anxiousness about being found out. And I'm always coming from behind as I started to hang around with older kids and tougher kids looking for something. I could never be loud enough or tough enough, or I could never be enough. I was always coming from behind. When I was almost 13 years old, an event occurred in my life that happens to a lot of kids. Happened to my daughter when she was about almost 16, and she doesn't have alcoholism. But it happened to me, and it happened to a bunch of other kids, and we stole some bottles of whiskey out of somebody's house in the neighborhood, And I'm with these older kids, and I want to fit with them. I just want to belong. I just want to feel like I'm a part of, and I don't. And it was the first time that this squirmy thing inside of me that the book refers to as a spiritual illness or a spiritual malady. It's a malady of my very being, was touched by alcohol, an event that would literally change the course of my life. And I got to tell you that basically what happened to me inside me as the effect of the alcohol started to spread out within me is that for the first time in my life, I started to feel like other people looked. For the first time in my life, whatever that invisible yet impenetrable barrier between me and life itself just seemed to dissolve away. I love what Bill Wilson says in his story. He says, I was part of life at last. And it was all of a sudden I could get drunk and I could come out and play. The effect in the early days of drinking was so spectacular. It's no wonder that the hook was set back then. And it was amazing. I mean, here's a guy who doesn't know how to get along with people, who can't talk to people, who seems to be a little bit half-assed depressed and locked up inside himself. And 4 or 5 drinks, man, I can come out and play. 7 drinks, I love you and stuff. You know, remember that? I love you, man. You know, I mean, I remember I was hanging around with these bunch of guys and we just did some illegal stuff and we're drunk and we're saying things to each other like, I'll die for you, man, you know. I mean, when you're a lonely mope who doesn't fit anywhere, that's amazing. I could shoot pool better than I could ever shoot pool. Oh my God, I'd get loose and I couldn't miss. I was in some kind of zone, could not miss. I could talk to girls. I can't talk to girls sober. You get me about half drunk, man. I like I'm channeling somebody or something. It's amazing. I remember talking to this girl at a junior high school dance that I had a crush on. Been drinking that 151 rum. Oh, magical. Anybody drink 151 rum here? Oh. If you're new and you just raised your hand, I want you to know something. There is no social drinking of 151 rum. And I came back out of that parking lot, right back into that dance under that 151 rum, and just walked right up to this girl who I couldn't even talk to, couldn't even look at her. She made me so crazy. And the words just started coming out of my mouth. And they're amazing words. And I don't know where they're coming from, but I had this out-of-body experience. I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, this is going to work. It was like, where's this coming from? And then I sober up and I'm back to being me again. And that's kind of depressing when you're 3 inches from the gates of heaven and then you got to go back to being you again. And I loved it. I loved it. And I didn't know I was in the grip of a progressive illness that over the years would get so bad that eventually I'd try to take my own life. Eventually it would drive me insane. And all my insanity and all the diagnoses were just part and parcel of a disease called alcoholism. A disease that amazingly enough, and this is right out of our book, it says that when the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. But I didn't know that. I just started seeing something happening to me that was not good. And what it is this magical, freeing thing that I found in alcohol over the years started to diminish, and the effect started becoming more and more elusive. And the trouble started getting worse and worse, and I started getting in a lot of trouble. And I grew up at a time when on the streets and the guys I ran around with, and we fancied ourselves rock and rollers and all that other stuff. We did a lot of drugs. I got to tell you something. I'm a real alcoholic. Alcoholics should not do drugs. It's bad. Oh my God, I do them alcoholically. I mean, and everything I picked up, I hurt myself with it. And went through a dance of death with that for a couple years, came full circle back to alcohol. And the last quite a few years were horrible. in this progressive illness, and our book says something very interesting. It says over any considerable period, any, drunk or sober, any considerable period, we get worse, never better. And I believe that with I lived that for 6 or 7 years as a relapser around here. And I've been sober long enough now to have watched guys get sober, and I 12-stepped them. I know exactly where they were at. And then they stay sober in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous for 15 years, and they pick up a drink. I'm telling you something. They do not pick up where they left off. The disease is angst up within them, and the problem is they don't know it. And what angsts up the most? What progresses the most? What is the root of our troubles? That's what gets stronger. Selfishness and self-centeredness. Or as the book equates it to ego, it says, when it says self-centered, dash, long dash, or egocentric, as people like to call it nowadays. And so I've worked with a lot of guys over the years that have relapsed, all the way up to 40. We had a guy in our detox 45 years. Bill Wilson was his sponsor. Me and one of the guys I sponsor made a project out of him. We just wanted to get him sober and no human power, and that means us too. But we were trying because he had such great stories about Bill Wilson and the groups in New York and the 24th Street Club and all this. And we really tried with this guy, but you could see the progression of the ego. He was the guy, he's dying of alcoholism, and he knows what's wrong with all of us. He's picking us apart. He can't listen. He's the I know guy. If you tell him something, he goes, yeah, I know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I think what he was really saying was, shut up, shut up. You can't tell him anything. And I understand that. I was that guy. I went to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous in an institution before I was old enough to take a legal drink. And I almost died of this disease because of an ego that keeps me apart and separate. It always squirms to cut me out of the herd and tell me and convince me that my case is special and unique and different. And there's a world out there of people that are willing to back you up, tell you that too. Even after 4 or 5 treatment centers, when I've finally been intellectually bludgeoned into an acceptance that I'm alcoholic. Okay, I'm alcoholic. I know. I pick up a drink. I can't stop. All right, I'm alcoholic. But even then, it's like I'm a special type of alcoholic. And when well-meaning people in AA would tell me things like, we know how you feel, I go, But I'd think to myself, no, you don't. You don't understand that the depressions I battle with. You don't understand how the crazy, insane thoughts that go through my mind. You don't understand these feelings of not fitting and this loneliness that I seem to walk with. But I wouldn't say that because I don't like the confrontation. So as they said, we understand, I just go, yeah, sure you do, sport. Sure you do. And I could never believe it. The last few years of my drinking, it's like all the fun ran out of it, and it was so pathetic. I became the guy that I would have made fun of in earlier years. I became the guy with the tremors in the morning, and they were so embarrassing. I hope I never forget this picture in my mind in this bar. In the Skid Row bar, I'm standing out in front of the place, and it opens at 7 a.m. I'm standing out there with a bunch of people who, if you looked up alcoholic in the dictionary, you'd see their picture, right? And I'm in my 20s, right? Early 20s, and I'm standing outside this bar, and I got the shakes, and I remember getting a double shot in a rock glass and drinking it, and my hands are shaking, and I remember out of the corner of my eye seeing the bartender look at me with that look of pity and disgust. And I hated it. I was so embarrassed to have people see my hands shake. And I'd come to in the morning, and if I was sleeping on some guy's couch, I'd come to and I'd just grab myself like this and rock back and forth like I felt like I wanted to jump out of my skin. My nerves are shot. I don't eat much. So what happens is after I get these sores that don't go away because I don't have any vitamins. I'm some kind of malnutrition. I have wet pants a lot. And the most pathetic part is I got to a point where I didn't even care. My whole life seemed to cook right down to such a simplistic, pathetic life of just every day, every waking moment. My whole goal was to get enough Richard's Wild Irish Rose to blot me out. And this is not a party. I'm not playing in a band no more. I ain't with the pretty girl. I ain't riding a Harley. I'm the pathetic guy who trembles and drinks, and I can't get drunk right anymore, and I feel sorry for myself when I drink. And if I'm sleeping on your couch at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm on your telephone calling people because I'm just so alone. And I don't understand what's wrong with me. I call ex-girlfriends at 4 a.m. and start crying into the phone. We should have got married. Oh, God. I'd call Helpline. I'd call Alcoholics Anonymous. I called my parents one time, and my mother answered the phone. I'm crying into the phone. You must have raised me wrong. I'm so messed up. Oh, jeez. Oh, this is pathetic. I cry sometimes when I'm by myself. I can't even get drunk right anymore. Some of you are sitting there and you're thinking, well, my God, don't you think it'd be time to get sober, Bob? The problem is I get sober a lot. And sober ain't no good for me. I do it for a while, but something, and this is the crazy part of this disease, because you finally have convinced me that drinking is my problem. Because people for years have been telling me that. I mean, if you're anything like I am, my God, by the time you get to Alcoholics Anonymous, there's probably been some people in your face talking to you about you. Maybe your mother and father's been talking to you about you. Maybe your priest or your minister. Maybe your mate. Maybe your kids. Maybe your therapist. Maybe your counselor. Maybe your PO. You get really bad, maybe your drug dealer's starting to talk to you about you. You get really bad, strangers on the street might start talking to you about you. And it doesn't matter which approach they use. It doesn't matter what words they use. It's always the same. They're always saying to me, Bob, you're really screwed up. And you catch me on a day when I'm demoralized and depressed and my defenses are down, I'll probably admit it. I'll probably go, yeah, I know. And they'll say, you know why you're so screwed up? No, I don't know. And I don't. I've been to so many therapists by this time. I don't know anymore. So they say to me, well, you're screwed up because you keep getting screwed up. If you didn't get screwed up, you wouldn't be so screwed up. So I'm pretty screwed up. I think, okay, I ain't going to get screwed up. And when I don't get screwed up, I get so screwed up, I got to go get screwed up. Right? And I don't understand this thing because you keep telling me that alcohol is my problem, and it is, but my God, I got a horrible sobriety problem. I mean, it's horrible. I'm the guy that Silkworth talks about. When I get sober, I'm restless. I can't get settled anywhere. I got a squirminess. I just want to be somewhere else. I don't know where that somewhere else is. I just don't want to be here. And I'm irritable. And I don't want to be irritable. I don't like irritable people. I can't help it that when I quit drinking and get sober after a while, I just become so painfully aware of how stupid everybody is. You know? And because I'm restless, I want to tell them. No wonder I feel so lonely. Oh, God. But I'm that way. I mean, I never worked anywhere where they weren't stupid. I never went to a meeting anywhere where the people in Sharon weren't stupid. The people in traffic are stupid. The people in the stores are stupid. It's like, and I'm the guy that's all by myself. Right? I'm the guy that's always leaving. And I'm chronically malcontent. And I don't know what this is about. Because, my God, I get sober, and it's like some kind of vacancy is inside me. I can't put my finger on it. I can't tell you what's missing, but my God, something ain't right here. And so I just start targeting things. Oh man, if I got a chopper, I'd be there. And I get it. I don't have it very long. What is it? Why does the shine of stuff wear off so quickly for me? I remember I had a buddy who I used to party with, and he was a bad drunk. He was a bad drunk, and he fell in love with this girl, and they had a great relationship, and he quit getting high for her. I remember seeing that and thinking, well, yeah. My God, if I had somebody who loved me like she loves him, I'd probably be there too. I'd probably be all right. And I found people to love me like that. Did you ever notice you're sober and they really love you? And it's like after a while, it's like, is that all you got? I mean, I'm like the black hole of love, you know. I mean, that's it? You can love me until you're about ready to pull your hair out and go, that's it? That's it? I mean, you can't love me enough. God, and I'd start picking you apart. I start blemishing you mentally. I remember, God, some buddies of mine were working for J&L Steel back in Pennsylvania. They were making big money. This would have been equal to 6 figures today at least. They were making buy a boat, own a house, have a Harley kind of money. And I thought, I'm maneuvering with these guys to get me in there, get me into that steel mill. I thought, man, if I had that job in that steel mill, man, I'd be there. All my problems would be solved. And I got that job. I'll tell you, I wasn't even there 6 weeks, and the people in there are taking advantage of me, and they're stupid, and, you know. What is that about? Why does the shine of stuff wear off so quickly with me? I was 10 years sober, and I'm working with a guy that I sponsor, and he said something, and it just clicked, and I got it. Unconsciously, now I want you to know I never was conscious of this once, but unconsciously on some kind of an emotional level, I'd compare what it feels like after a while to have that Harley to what it felt like to have 4 shots of tequila. After a while, I'd start comparing what it's like to be loved by that woman to what it was like to drink a pint of 151 rum. After a while, I start comparing what it's like working in that steel mill, making that big money, to what it was like to be smoking reefer and doing lines and drinking Richard's Wild Irish Rose with my buddies in the park. And now, no matter what it is, it pales by comparison. Alcohol spoiled me. It ruined me. And I didn't know that I would compare everything decent in life and how it made me feel against how that magic was. Now, the problem is that the magic's dead now. And I don't want to believe it's dead. My God, I don't want to believe it's dead. I don't want to believe that party's over. But the truth is, it's been over for the last 3 years or so that I drank. I can't tell you how many times I'd come off a run and I'm in a detox, or I'm in the county jail, or I'm somewhere, and I'm swearing to myself, and I mean it with every bit of me, that I'm never going to touch that stuff again. I can see it so clearly how pathetic it is, and how it makes me miserable, and it's not any fun anymore, and I drink and feel sorry for myself, and I ruin my life, and I hate I see it all so clearly, and I'm swearing to myself and meaning it, I'll never touch that again. And then day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, the loneliness and the low-level depression of the disappointment of life not ringing my bell, it all just starts to wear on me. And what happens to me after a while is that I just feel like I'm stuck up in here. It's like after a while of not drinking, I just get my life and my emotions and my future and my past just on me like that creature in that movie Alien that attaches itself to your face. How you doing, Bob? Oh, I'm hanging in there. And I'm the guy in a vision for you. What it says, we talk to a problem drinker, and we say, that's sober at the time, and you say, how you doing? He says, oh, I work better, feel better, having a better time. And then it says, he fools himself like a boy whistling in the dark to keep up his spirits. And I used to say stuff like that. I would even make little mental gratitude lists. So I'm grateful I'm not in jail, and I'm grateful I don't have leprosy, and I'm grateful I just, anything I grab onto, hoping, for God's sakes, hoping that I'm going to maybe feel better, or maybe, because you people in AA were very strange. First of all, you're not drinking, and you're happy and sober at the same time. That is very weird to me. I understand both, but I don't understand them together. Abstinence feels like I'm doing time. And and what happens after a while is I just start to yearn and fantasize about freedom. I don't want to go back to jail. I don't want to lose my spot in the halfway house. I don't want to be out in the streets. It's wintertime. There's snow on the ground. I don't want to hurt nobody. But my God, I just want to bust out of these emotions and these crazy, insane thoughts that just chatter at me all the time. I just want to get free. And right behind that is a cellular memory if you're alcoholic. And the cellular memory is your emotions are putting the screws to you. Is the memory that at one time, 4 or 5 shots of tequila would make it all right. It would make it all go away. Dr. Silkworth says we cannot differentiate the true from the false. When the untreated alcoholism, when my spirit is sick and it's making me mentally weird, I can't see the fact that the party's over. My God, I can't see anything except the hope of relief. And you don't know that it doesn't work anymore until you're about an hour into the drinking. You're starting to feel sorry for yourself, and you think, what have I done? Now I got no place to live. What have I done? And is it alcoholism? There's a line in our book that says the alcoholic's problem lies mainly in his mind. This is the only disease I know of. If you got it, it uses your own head against you, which is not good. That's bad news, because I don't know about you, but when I'm frustrated or angry or afraid, what's the first thing I want to do? I want to think. I'm a thinker. I'm retreating up to the source of my problem for a solution. I mean, that's insane. That's nuts. And yet I do it every time. And it starts talking. It chatters to me. It talks to me. My alcohol, it talks to me. It says little things like, my God, Bob, you haven't had a drink or anything for 8 months. You're going to those meetings. You're working at that stupid job. You've been a really good sport up to now. I mean, what are these people in AA? They're so extreme. This, absolute abstinence stuff. They're fanatics. They're crazy. God, you've worked hard now. You've been sober all this time. You could take a weekend pass out of the halfway house and just go out, maybe have maybe have a jam session with some guys, maybe meet a girl, maybe get laid, something. Maybe you hook up, you'll live happily ever after something. Bob, you're entitled. You'll be back Sunday night. And I'm like that dog in the Alpo commercials. They haven't fed in 4 weeks going, right? And then what happens? The minute I pick up a drink and the phenomenon of cravings on me and I can't stop, the same voice that seduced me to take the first drink instantaneously turns on me and goes, you worthless piece of crap. You've just lost everything. As I sink into some abyss of self-pity. And I am in a trap I can't spring. And my God, I've been trying to spring it. I went to some I came to a conclusion from my experience in 150 meetings probably, in the desperate years when I really didn't want it to keep going like this. And I'd be sober for a while, and I'd go to your meetings, and I'd sit there, and I'd listen to you, and I'd watch you. And I knew something. It was obvious to me. You're nice people. And you've got a drinking problem, and drinking's sort of in part of my problem, sort of. But whatever's wrong with me is not the same thing that's wrong with you. Because my God, you quit drinking and, you're grateful for everything. I don't even like anything. I don't like me. I don't like nothing. You love everybody. People used to come up and say, if nobody's told you today they love you, I just want to punch them, So whatever's wrong with you is not what's wrong with me. So I started seeking help in the psychiatric profession. My mother was a therapist with mental health in Pennsylvania. She got, between her and my dad, who was politically connected, they got me in to see I identify with Roland Hazard, the absolute top of the food chain for psychiatrists. Guys like Albert Ellis. You had to be a movie star in those days to see Ellis, to go up to New York and be in therapy with him at the Institute for Rational Motive Therapy. Guys like Dr. Silverman, who was contemporary and studied with Fritz Perls, the founder. He also studied with Alan Watts. He came out to California and went to Watts's place and lived there for a while. These were amazing men. But they never touched what was really wrong with me. I've been diagnosed as clinically depressed, and I've read the psychiatric charts that shows you how to diagnose stuff. I understand why I was diagnosed clinically depressed. If I was a therapist and I had a guy like me, I'd probably say he's clinically depressed too. But I wasn't. It was the spiritual depression of untreated alcoholism. You know how I know that? I'm not a psychiatrist, but you know how I know that? Absolutely 110% is because the medication and the treatment and therapy for clinical depression didn't work for me. It wasn't until I came into Alcoholics Anonymous and did the treatment for spiritual depression that Bill Wilson talks about in his story, when he'd start sinking into the abyss of self-pity and he'd make himself go down to Towns Hospital and find some drunk. And it would make him come off of him. See, I had the depression of a guy who just gets himself so much on himself that I feel like I'm smothering here. And I am. I'm smothering me with me. No wonder when guys like me quit drinking after a while, it feels like somebody's turned the oxygen off in the room. We all have the same experience. The first time you take your first drink after 8 or 10 months of sobriety, we all go the same. Somebody turned the air back on. I was diagnosed as free-floating anxiety and panic disorder. And that just comes from a guy who gets up here and ponders things deeply. I would ponder myself into a panic. What is it about? Have you ever did you ever just decide that you wanted to sit down and check your future? Has anybody ever done that and it came out well? My future never looks good because I can only see potential problems. And when you think about it and you look at it, there's a bunch all of a sudden. There's a lot of problems out there. I'm great at solving problems that haven't occurred yet. I'm always trying to clear up the wreckage of my future. Well, that's how I play God. I go up into the control center and try to manage the future. Doesn't work very well. And so I don't know what's wrong with me, but it doesn't look like alcoholism. Because when I quit drinking, I'm so messed up, and I don't know what it is. Because none of the psychiatrists are really hitting it because nothing's changing. As a matter of fact, I'm getting worse. And I'm not only does my drinking get worse, but I'm emotionally worse every time I get sober. I'm lonelier and more prone to depression and anxiety and fear. I'm less able to, it's not that I'm physically unemployable, I've become emotionally unemployable. Because I ain't a team player. I don't know how to get along with people. And so I drink. When it finally backs me into a corner and I just can't take it anymore, I pick up a drink, hoping to get some relief, some ease and comfort that I'd found years before. But I can't find it. And the horrible thing is when I pick up a drink, something inside of me kicks into motion and it is really literally what makes me an alcoholic. And that is an allergic reaction to alcohol. Do you know that only occurs in people with alcoholism? They ask you crazy questions in treatment centers the last 20 years. They'll ask you things like, Bob, what's your drug of choice? What do you got? I drank vanilla extract a couple times. I don't know. One time in jail, I broke open a magic marker and huffed it, just hoping something might happen. I don't know. And what they should have asked me is, what happens to you when you start to drink? As the effect of the alcohol hits you, are you satisfied with one or two? Bob, have you ever had the experience of been drinking with your buddies for an hour in a bar and have the bartender come over to you and say, hey, Bob, you ready for another one? Have you ever had the experience of sitting there and thinking to yourself honestly, no, this is good, thanks. I've never had that experience. It's always one more. Every drink of alcohol I've ever had in my life makes me feel like I want to have another one. Like I yearn for more. And so abstinence is so unbearable, I pick up a drink hoping for some kind of relief, some kind of freedom. And the phenomenon of craving kicks in and I burn my life to the ground again. Because I can't stop when I've never been able to stop when there's resources left. I can't stop. I watch guys come into AA sometimes. They still have a lot of money and stuff, big house and a nice car. I thought, oh, I'd have sold all that. But their bottom was in here, and mine was too. The real bottom in alcoholism doesn't have anything to do with what you lost materially. To become a hopeless alcoholic, or as the book says, an alcoholic of the hopeless variety, it's not that you lose all hope of getting the material stuff back. I think most of us don't care after a while. Is that I lost all hope of ever jump-starting that party. The book says that the idea that somehow, someday, some way, I'll control and enjoy my drinking is our great obsession. Most of us pursue it to the gates of insanity or death, and it's an illusion, the book says, because it doesn't exist. There is no, in the latter stages of alcoholism, any semblance of enjoyment. The old pleasures are gone. The party's dead. It's a dead horse. It's been a dead horse for a couple years now, and I keep trying it, hoping against hope that I can get this sucker to get up and ride, but it's a carcass. And I can't control it because once I start, I don't know what's going to happen except that I'm not going to be able to stop once I start. And I have to be stopped. And that's never joyful, being stopped. Because it usually involves a hospital or handcuffs or being beaten up or broken ribs. Or it's never good because I just can't stop. You ever been in the middle of a run and you think to yourself, I could see by another week this could be bad. I think this is just the right time to stop before it gets out of hand. I can't do that. I gotta take it to the wall. I gotta crash and burn. For me to pick up a drink, it's like having sex with a gorilla. You ain't done till the gorilla's done. You can tell yourself all night long, me and that gorilla are just gonna have a dance. No, you're not. No, it's bad. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad. Bad. And I don't know what's wrong with me. In 1978, I'd been sentenced by a judge for 2 years in state penitentiary, and then he cut me a break. And told me if I went into this place called the Ark House, I can't even say it was a treatment center. This is the place that you go when no other place will take you. You know, they just bunk beds, 20 of them in a room, and you know, it was like a fancy. It was like a homeless shelter, basically, for guys like me and some guys out of prison. It was run by a member of AA that was he was sort of a rebel member of AA, but he took guys off the streets like me that had nowhere to go. And the courts wanted to put me somewhere else, but every place they checked wouldn't take me because I'd been there. It was the only place that would take me, so they told me if I could stay in there for a year and get good urinalysis and good PO reports, and I had to make the restitution because I was part of the 2 years rested on the fact that I'd, in a blackout, in a borrowed car. They charged me, originally it was stolen, but it was really borrowed, and I sideswiped a whole bank of parked cars, which I don't remember anything about it. And so I'm in this Ark House, and I'm really trying not to drink because I don't want to do the 2 years. I don't jail well. And besides that, it's pathetic. On the drunk that ended me up in jail, I remember like a half hour into the drunk, sitting in this bar, and as I came in there sober, I came in there with a tremendous excitement and anticipation about getting high. And now I'm sitting in the bar and I'm drinking double shots for a couple of them, and about a half hour in, and I'm starting to sink into this abyss of self-pity as I look out and I watch the people in the bar that are having a good time. And I remember sitting there thinking, my God, what's wrong with me? Because I could remember when I was about all of that. I could remember when I used to drink and shoot pool with the guys and laugh and dance with the girls and do all that. And now I drink and feel sorry for myself. And it was like a window opened and I could see the truth. And the truth was, Bob, this is it. This is as good as it. This self-pitying, pathetic, lonely drinking is as good as it gets. This is it. Matter of fact, Bob, when's the last time it hasn't been like this? And I couldn't remember. It'd been a while. And it's like this. And I was in that place it talks about in the Vision for You. It says, it calls it the jumping off place. It says you'll get to a point where you can't imagine life with it anymore because it's so pathetic, it's turned on you. And yet I can't imagine life without it either because abstinence feels like I'm doing time. And I am literally stuck in a trap I can't spring. And I'm in this Ark House and I can't take it anymore. And I made abstinence drives me insane. It drives me so insane that even though I'm absolutely convinced there's no relief in the bottle anymore, even though I'm absolutely convinced this is killing me and I've sworn to myself I'll never touch it again, abstinence will drive me so insane that I'll start to imagine once again that there's some relief in the bottle and I'll take a shot. I'll take a shot because it feels like my emotions are in a vice and they're just tightening it. And I just got to have some relief. I'll take a shot. And I took a shot and I came to in the park. I'd been thrown out of the place, which means I got 2 years coming at me. And I come to, and I'm only, I don't know, a couple days into the run maybe, and the tremors are back already. And I'm pathetic and I'm feeling sorry for myself. And I'd had a complete physical that prior year in a treatment center. And this doctor came back after the physical was over and like he had good news for me. I was young, I was in my 20s, and he said to me, he said, well, kid, he said, you're young enough and you bounce back physically enough, you could probably go on like this. It's probably not going to kill you for about 5 more years. I came to in that park and I'm thinking, 5 more years of this? And I remember thinking, I ain't doing 5 more days of this. And I made the decision to off myself because I can't do this. And I went to a bridge in Pittsburgh. And I'm standing on this bridge and I'm looking down at these railroad tracks about 150 feet below, I suppose, 100, I don't know, ways. And I'm trying to get up enough courage to kill myself. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm welcoming it. But a fear came over me and that made it impossible for me to jump. And the fear was, Bob, What if you screw this up like you've screwed up everything else in your life and you don't die? You're in your 20s, you're going to end up laying sober in a charity ward, paralyzed from the neck down for 50 years as your head tells you what a piece of crap you are. And members of Alcoholics Anonymous parade their newcomers through the room, and you get to hear them say, well, this is what happens to you when you don't work our wonderful 12 steps. And I'm paralyzed. I can't even give them the one-finger salute. You want to scare the crap out of me, face me with that. If I could have known, I tell you, I'm convinced if I could have guaranteed I was going to die, I'd have done it. I would have done it and been happy to do it. See, I can't go on like this. I can't drink myself to death. Some alcoholics can actually hang long enough to drink themselves to death. Oh my God, it takes a long time. It's like being kicked to death by rabbits. It just goes on and on and on. And by the time it kills you, you've wished you were dead for a long time. By the time it kills you, all the people you loved and you wanted their approval, they hate you. They're going to be glad you're dead. As my mother said to me when I was a year sober and I saw her for the first time, she broke down sobbing because she told me that for some time she had just wished I would die. My mother loved me. But that's what alcoholism does. It tortures the people and tears their heart up of the people that dare to love us. Matter of fact, I look back over the years, there was nobody that ever loved me that didn't come away hurt. Nobody. Is it any wonder that some of us have a hard time saving our own lives because we start to develop a secret hatred for ourselves? Why wouldn't we? I start feeling about myself the way I would feel about anyone that would hurt the people I love like I hurt them. It's just a simple cause and effect. But the glory of Alcoholics Anonymous is that we access some grace here in a process of the 12 steps, and we get to repair all of that. And we get to make it all right, and it's glorious. It's glorious. And then we use our experiences in making that all right and how horrible it was to help the next guy that comes in the door who is absolutely convinced that no one has ever been as bad as he is. And I love it when newcomers come to meetings and start saying that, well, you guys don't understand, I'm really bad. Oh, it's like there's a feeding frenzy of people wanting to share all of a sudden in the room. And then by the end of the meeting, he starts thinking, well, maybe I'm not bad enough yet. Where else on earth do misfits like me fit except in Alcoholics Anonymous? And yet I came here for 7 years and didn't feel like I fit. And I came here trying to get relief. A lot of people do. The problem is if you're self-directed, which means you may have a sponsor in name only, but nobody's touching the wheel of your ship except you, because you know you're the smartest one in the room. If you're self-directed and self-serving, as I was when I was new, I thought my name was, does anybody want to share? Right? My favorite thing to do when I was new, until my sponsor beat me up over it, was to take a whole room hostage on whatever I was feeling for that day. I'll tell you, there ain't nothing more glorious than capturing about 30 people and having them all focused on me. And I started getting sicker. My sponsor beat me up. He said, you can't do that. He says, you bring your problems to me. He says, what, you don't believe in sponsorship? He says, you want to run your own show and just use the meetings to be self-directed? Bring your problems to me. You bring the solutions in what you found here that's positive, because you're going to meetings and it's not going to be all about you anymore. You're going to go there for one reason only, and that's to contribute to something that's designed to help other alcoholics. That is our primary purpose, number one. I didn't know that. I got here, I thought my primary purpose was me, pretty much. Me. My sponsor, I fell into the hands of these fanatics in AA. They were big on service. My sponsor had every service position from delegate on down, every conference committee. I mean, he was 12-step. I met him in the hospital because he was one of the guys that did the H&I. And they started pushing me. I'm brand new. They're pushing me. Go help people. Go get on the 12-step list. I want you to bring meetings back into the detox. I want you to sign up for that new meeting we're starting out at the state penitentiary. I want you to start looking for new guys. Go on 12-step calls. And they're pushing me with this stuff. And I sit there, I said, listen, I know what you're saying here. But for God's sakes, don't you think I should work on me for a while? And he says to me, work on you? You've done quite enough of that. Stop it. And I had, my God, if a guy could have fixed himself by working on himself, I'd have been fixed. I don't know about you guys, but my whole life is me. My whole life is making me better, making me feel better, making me more secure. Me. If I could have fixed myself, I went to the greatest therapist I did. I mean, I primal screamed. I was hypnotized and regressed back into my childhood because even though I had a nice childhood, I just suspected someone must have damaged me. Well, for God's sakes, I felt damaged. You know, did you ever sit and check yourself out and you go, Bob, do you feel damaged? Oh, yes, I do. I mean, if I could have fixed me, I'd have fixed me. And they just said, forget. It's almost like they're telling me to do the hardest thing I could ever do. Forget yourself. Well, when that's all you think about, that's a hard thing to do. And I started taking these actions, and I started finding islands in my abstinence where I would be free. I remember all of a sudden there was people I started to sponsor a couple guys. And I felt so inadequate. I didn't want to do it. And they told me, you got to do it. You'll learn as you go. And read that chapter, Working with Others. Try to do what it says in there. And I felt very inadequate. But I started to care about these people. It's funny how guys like me, I come in and my whole universe is me. And my emotions, and my problems, and my feelings. And then you guys push me into service, and all of a sudden, there's a couple guys I start caring about. I really start caring about. I mean, I know this one guy, he didn't make it, and he killed himself. And oh my God, it broke my heart. I don't know that I'd ever cared about anybody like that. And I'd spent hours in Denny's with this guy, talking about ourselves, and trying to figure out how to do stuff out of that book. And my world was starting to expand and get bigger. And what a gracious thing that is. You were starting to relieve me of the bondage of self. When I was brand new, I had this ego reduction at depth that Dr. Thibault talks about, and it wasn't my doing. I was actually surrendered by the bottle. And then what happened to me is the same thing Thibault talks about. It's the same thing that it talks about into action. The ego starts coming back. And I don't know it. And that's the tragic part. It starts growing back again, and I start filling up with myself. And I don't know it. What's happening to me is all of a sudden I'm sober a few years, and I'm a DCM, and I'm this and I'm that. And I can start seeing very clearly how there's certain people that just don't have a good program. There's some of them here tonight. And I'd go to my sponsor, and not only was I seeing that in AA, I was seeing it at work. I was seeing how the people aren't working hard enough. I'm the working harder and everything. I was seeing all that stuff. I go to my sponsor, and I make little mental lists of people that are just apparently very out of line. You know, you got the guy who sells Amway in the parking lot of the AA meeting. You know, that's really wrong. You got the guy who drinks 5 cups of coffee and doesn't put $1 in the basket. Because I watch for things like that now. You got the 13-steppers who I really resent because they're getting more action than I am. I don't say that. Don't say that. And I go to him and I tell him all this stuff, and he'd say the same thing. He'd say, you got to quit playing God. I think I'm not playing God. I'm reporting accurate information here. I'm not playing God. And I'd puffed up with me again, and I was up on the throne of judgment, and I was playing God. How else does guys like me play God except we think we know? That's what the ego is. I'll tell you a quick little thing. About a year and a half ago, I was upstate New York. I'm always learning stuff here and apply. It's like I have never been able to stay static here. I'm in love with Alcoholics Anonymous, and I work with a lot of new guys, and it keeps me on fire here. And I'm upstate New York, and there was this woman there who's very bright and very well-read, more intellectually than I am for sure. And she told me something that, boy, it blew my mind. She said, if you were to go back and read the Old Testament in the original language, and I can't remember, she said it was Aramaic, or anyway, whatever that language is, and you read Genesis, the part about the Garden of Eden, she said when it talks about the serpent, if you would take that word as it was originally written and literally translate it into the English, it's not the word for serpent. She said it's the word for the sound the serpent makes. It's the hiss and the slither. And it never goes away. It's right there, right now. It's just chattering. It's saying things like, what's he doing with his hand next to his head? Or whatever. And it just never goes away. It's the thing that starts telling you how your sponsor's old and he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's the thing that tells you how that big book was written in 1939, for God's sakes. It starts talking to you. It starts building the cases against the people you work with. It builds cases against people you're in relationships with. It spooks you, and it gets you running from the garden every single time. And it never, ever, ever, ever goes away. As a matter of fact, every single day of my life for many, many years now, when I go retire at night, I start to look for its handprints and footprints in my life. As I ask myself the questions on the top of page 86. Know your enemy and know where the power comes from. I have never seen my ego eyeball to eyeball, and I've never seen God eyeball to eyeball, even though I have seen his hand in my life continually. But what I've learned is I've learned to watch for the manifestations of God in my life and be grateful for his grace. And give thanks where thanks is due. See, my ego starts saying, oh, maybe you really did that, Bob. And to watch for the enemy. And there's a tremendous freedom that comes here. And we try to clear this stuff out of the way and help God's kids. And what has happened to me over the years, it's not that I've ever been free. The ego, the self, has never gone away once and for all. But when I'm spiritually fit, contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition, my ego is put in a position of neutrality. It's almost like it chatters, but it's like music in the doctor's office. You don't really hear it. I get afraid, and I get full of self-centered fear, which in step 7, the 12 by 12 says is the chief activator of my defects. It just comes right here. And it's not now reality, and what my sponsor says and what's being shared in the meeting now is like music in the doctor's office. It's distant, and I'm disassociated from it because it's got me again right here. It just smears my life and my feelings and its fears across the windshield of my car. Is it any wonder that when I'm full of self, I have a tendency to crash a little bit sober? When I was brand new, I'll say this and I'll shut up. When I was brand new, a guy cornered me after a meeting, and he said to me, he says, listen, kid, you need to take step 3. I said to this guy, Joe, I said, I read the step on the wall. I said, Joe, I can't take step 3. I don't really believe in God. He says, you don't have to believe in God to take step 3. I said, Joe, that's what it says. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. It's what it says. He says, listen, kid, trust me. If you'll turn your will and your life over to this chair, and he points to a chair in the Alano Club, he says, I guarantee you an instantaneous miracle. I said, okay, I turned my will and life over to the chair, Joe. What's the miracle? He says, oh, the miracle would be your life's no longer in the hands of an idiot. And I didn't even get mad. I just thought, yeah, that'd be right. If you're new, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. Join us and we will show you how to get your life out of the hands of an idiot.